June 6, 1944. 10:15 a.m. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel's staff car rolled through the gates of his headquarters at La Roche-Guyon. He stepped out, still wearing his dress uniform, the same one he had worn the night before at his wife's 50th birthday dinner in Germany. Then he looked north. The horizon was black with ships, thousands of them, a steel armada stretching from one end of the Norman coast to the other. The sky swarmed with aircraft. The thunder of naval guns shook the chateau's ancient walls. Rommel stood frozen. His chief of staff approached, pale-faced, holding a stack of reports. The invasion had begun 6 hours earlier. Allied forces were already ashore. Paratroopers had seized key bridges. The Atlantic Wall, Rommel's fortress of Europe, was breaking apart. Rommel didn't need to read a single page. He could see the truth from the window. In that instant, one of history's greatest military minds understood something terrible. The war was over. Germany had lost, not in 6 months, not in a year, but today, this morning. The rest was only dying. This is the story of the day Rommel knew. To understand what Rommel saw that morning, you need to understand what he'd built. Erwin Rommel was a legend, the Desert Fox, the man who'd made Churchill's generals look like schoolboys in North Africa. Hitler called him the Reich's finest field commander. The Allies feared him more than any other German officer. In late 1943, Hitler gave Rommel an impossible task: defend 3,000 miles of European coastline from Norway to Spain. The Allies were coming. Everyone knew it. The question was where and when. Rommel inspected the existing defenses and was horrified. The Atlantic Wall was a propaganda myth. A few concrete bunkers, some beach obstacles, nothing that could stop a determined invasion. So Rommel got to work. He poured millions of tons of concrete. He planted 500,000 mines. He installed thousands of obstacles on every beach, steel hedgehogs, wooden stakes, Belgian gates. He flooded fields to trap paratroopers. He positioned artillery to cover every approach. He called it Fortress Europe. He believed in it. But Rommel had one strategic insight that set him apart from every other German commander. He knew Germany couldn't win a long battle. The Allies had too many men, too much material, too much industrial power. Germany's only chance was to stop the invasion at the waterline, destroy it on the beaches. In the first hours, before it could establish a foothold, Rommel told his officers, "The enemy must be annihilated before he reaches our main battlefield. We must stop him in the water, not only delaying him, but destroying all his equipment while it is still afloat." He was right, but he needed one thing to make it work: freedom to move his panzer divisions. Mobile armored reserves that could rush to the invasion site within hours and crush the beachhead before it solidified. Hitler refused. The panzers were placed under central command. They couldn't move without permission from Berlin, without permission from the Führer himself. That decision doomed everything. Rommel had been in Germany when the invasion began. His wife Lucy was turning 50. Rommel hadn't seen her in months. He'd also planned to meet Hitler at the Berghof to argue, one more time, for control of the panzer divisions. He believed the invasion would come in mid-June, based on tide and moon conditions. He was wrong by 10 days. At 6:30 a.m. on June 6th, Rommel received a phone call at his home in Herrlingen. Allied paratroopers had dropped across Normandy. Ships were approaching the coast. This was it. Rommel immediately called headquarters. "Where are the panzers?" They hadn't moved. "Get them to Normandy, now." "Field Marshal, we need authorization from OKW." "Then get it. They're trying to reach the Führer, but what? He's asleep, yet no one dares wake him. Let that sink in. The largest amphibious invasion in human history was underway. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of men. And Germany's panzer reserves sat idle because Adolf Hitler was sleeping, and his staff was too terrified to knock on his bedroom door. By the time Hitler woke at 10 a.m., gave permission, and the orders filtered through the command structure, it was afternoon. The panzers began moving toward Normandy. They were immediately hammered by Allied fighter bombers. Roads became killing zones. Tanks burned. Columns scattered. Rommel arrived at La Roche-Guyon at 10:15 a.m. The reports were catastrophic. 5 beaches assaulted. Allied troops were inland at 4 of them. At Omaha Beach, the Americans had taken massive casualties, but were pushing off the sand. At Gold, Juno, and Sword, the British and Canadians were linking up. At Utah, the Americans were miles inland. The Atlantic Wall had held for approximately 90 minutes. Rommel moved to the situation map. His staff officers stood in silence. Red markers showed Allied penetration points. Blue markers showed German defensive positions, shrinking by the hour. Someone asked what orders to give. Rommel stared at the map. He calculated distances, reinforcement times, supply routes. He ran through scenarios in his mind. He was arguably the finest tactical commander in the German military. And he saw it all clearly. The panzers would arrive too late. The Luftwaffe had no air superiority. The Kriegsmarine couldn't challenge the Allied fleet. German reinforcements would be bombed to pieces on every road to Normandy. The invasion force would grow stronger every hour while German forces grew weaker. Rommel turned to his chief of staff, Hans Speidel. He spoke quietly, almost a whisper. "We have lost the West." That phrase. We have lost the West. Not the battle is difficult, not we face challenges, not we must fight harder. We have lost. Past tense, already over. 10 hours into the invasion, Rommel knew the war was finished. His staff officers looked at each other. No one spoke. You didn't contradict a field marshal. You especially didn't contradict Rommel. But this was unthinkable, defeatist, dangerous to even hear. Speidel carefully asked what Rommel meant. Rommel walked to the window. He could still see the smoke rising from the coast, 40 miles away. He could hear the distant thunder of naval bombardment. He explained his reasoning with cold logic. The Allies had achieved total surprise. They'd landed with overwhelming force at the moment of Germany's maximum weakness. The panzers were too far away, moving too slowly, and being destroyed piecemeal. Air superiority meant Germany couldn't reinforce or resupply effectively. Most critically, the Allies could replace losses. Germany couldn't. Every tank Germany lost was irreplaceable. Every trained soldier killed meant one less defender. The German military was bleeding out in Russia, Italy, and now France. There were no strategic reserves, no fresh divisions, no miracle weapons that would arrive in time. But the Allies? They had the entire industrial might of America behind them. They could land divisions faster than Germany could destroy them. They could afford to lose battles and still win the war. Rommel had fought the British in North Africa. He knew what they could endure. Now add the Americans, fresh, untested, but unimaginably wealthy in men and material. And the invasion had worked. They were ashore, digging in, building up. The arithmetic was simple. Germany had one chance. Stop them on D-Day, in the first hours, at the waterline. That chance was gone. Rommel knew something else, something he didn't say out loud. Hitler would never allow retreat. never allow strategic withdrawal. The Führer would demand Germany fight for every inch of France, bleeding the Wehrmacht white in battles they couldn't win. Rommel could see the whole future unfolding. Months of grinding combat. German armies encircled and destroyed, France lost, Germany invaded, Berlin in ruins. He saw it all on June 6th at 10:15 in the morning. The question was, what do you do when you know you've already lost? Rommel didn't surrender. He didn't retreat. He didn't give up. He fought. For the next 7 weeks, Rommel threw everything he had at the Allied beachhead. He was brilliant. He was ruthless. He made the Allies pay for every field, every village, every mile of Norman countryside. The Battle of Normandy became a meat grinder. Allied casualties were staggering. Over 200,000 killed, wounded, or missing by the end of August. The Americans learned that the European war would be nothing like their easy victories in North Africa. The British faced some of their bloodiest fighting since World War I. Rommel made them earn it. He positioned his forces masterfully. He used the Norman hedgerows, ancient walls of earth and vegetation, to create a defender's paradise. Every field was a fortress. Every lane a killing zone. Allied tanks were ambushed and destroyed. Infantry attacks dissolved in storms of machine gun fire. But Rommel was right. The math didn't work. For every Allied soldier killed, 2 more arrived. For every tank destroyed, 3 more rolled off the transport ships. The beachhead expanded. The Allies built artificial harbors, laid fuel pipelines, constructed entire ports from nothing. Meanwhile, German reinforcements were bombed to pieces before they reached the front. Supply convoys were strafed. Fuel ran out. Ammunition ran low. Rommel watched his divisions shrink from exhaustion, attrition, and relentless Allied firepower. He traveled constantly to forward positions, trying to plug holes in the line. His staff begged him to stay back. Field marshals didn't belong in combat zones. Rommel ignored them. He seemed almost suicidal, driving through areas under artillery fire, appearing at the front when Allied planes controlled the skies. On July 17th, his luck ran out. British fighter bombers caught his staff car on a country road near Sainte-Foy-de-Montgomery. They strafed it. Rommel was thrown from the vehicle, his skull fractured, his face torn open. He nearly died. He was in the hospital when the final disaster came. Operation Cobra. The Americans broke out of the beachhead, smashed through the German lines, and flooded into open country. The war in France was over, just as Rommel had predicted. But by then, Rommel was involved in something far more dangerous than fighting the Allies. He was part of a conspiracy to kill Adolf Hitler. Not because Rommel was a Democrat, not because he opposed Nazism on moral grounds, but because he'd done the math. Germany was going to lose. The only way to save anything, save German cities from destruction, save German soldiers from pointless death, was to end the war. Hitler had to go. The July 20th plot failed. Hitler survived the bomb. The conspirators were rounded up, tortured, executed. The Gestapo investigated everyone connected to the plot. They found evidence linking Rommel. On October 14th, 1944, 2 generals arrived at Rommel's home. They gave him a choice: stand trial for treason, guaranteeing his execution and his family's destruction, or take poison and die as a hero. His family would be spared. He'd receive a state funeral. His reputation would remain intact. Rommel chose poison. He was 52 years old. The official story was that he died from his injuries. Germany mourned. Hitler sent a wreath. Rommel received the state funeral he'd been promised. The truth didn't emerge until after the war. So what really happened on June 6th? What did Rommel actually see? He saw the end of an era. The end of the Wehrmacht's myth of invincibility. The end of the belief that superior tactics and fighting spirit could overcome material disadvantage. Rommel had built his reputation on winning battles he shouldn't have won. In France in 1940, outnumbered but audacious. In North Africa in 1941-42, undersupplied but brilliant. He'd made the impossible look routine. But D-Day taught him something he'd always known intellectually, but had never fully felt. Genius can't beat geometry. Tactics can't overcome logistics. Courage can't defeat mathematics. The Allies had more. More ships, more planes, more tanks, more men, more fuel, more ammunition. More industry, more everything. They could afford mistakes. They could absorb casualties. They could outlast any defense. Rommel wasn't defeated by Eisenhower's strategy or Montgomery's tactics. He was defeated by Detroit factories and Pennsylvania steel mills and Texas oil fields. By a war economy so vast it could supply two separate theaters, Europe and the Pacific, simultaneously, and still have surplus. Standing at that window on June 6th, Rommel understood what many Germans wouldn't grasp until Berlin fell. This war was never winnable. The question was never, can we win? The question was, how much will we lose before it ends? He knew the answer. Everything. There's a photograph of Rommel from May 1944. He's inspecting beach obstacles in Normandy 1 month before D-Day. He's smiling, confident. He believes in the Atlantic Wall. There's another photograph from July, weeks after the invasion. Rommel looks 20 years older, exhausted, haunted. He knows. History remembers Rommel as one of Germany's finest generals. That's probably true. But his real genius wasn't tactical brilliance. It was seeing clearly. He saw the truth before anyone dared to speak it. On June 6th, while other German commanders were still talking about throwing the Allies back into the sea, Rommel understood that the war was over. While Hitler raged about wonder weapons and final victory, Rommel calculated the math and saw only defeat. That clarity cost him everything: his reputation, his position, ultimately his life. But he was right. The war in the West was lost on D-Day. The rest was just determining the body count. Rommel knew it at 10:15 a.m. on June 6, 1944. Standing at a window in a French chateau, watching the horizon burn, he saw the truth. And the truth killed him. July 20th, 1944. Rastenburg, East Prussia. The Wolf's Lair. 12:42 p.m. A wooden briefcase sits beneath a heavy oak table. Inside, 4 pounds of British plastic explosive. Around the table, Hitler and his generals bent over maps of the Eastern Front. Then, the blast. Wood splinters, bodies thrown, smoke, screaming. Dust settles slowly in the summer air. Adolf Hitler crawls from the wreckage, uniform torn, ears ringing, right arm trembling, but alive. He stumbles outside, convinced he's been saved by Providence, by destiny itself. But in the hours that follow, something else breaks. Not wood, not concrete, trust. And he begins to understand what that explosion truly meant. Rewind 6 weeks. June 1944. Normandy has fallen. The Red Army is closing from the east. German cities burn under Allied bombs every night. The Sixth Army, gone at Stalingrad. Africa, lost. Italy, collapsing. Inside the bunker at Berchtesgaden, Hitler still moves phantom divisions across maps. He orders counterattacks with armies that no longer exist. He screams at generals who dare speak the word withdrawal. And those generals, men like Rommel, Tresckow, Stauffenberg, they see it now. Not leadership. Delusion. The Führer who promised victory is leading them into annihilation. Every order costs thousands of lives. Every refusal to retreat traps entire divisions. The man who built the Reich is now destroying it. One suicidal command at a time. So they make a decision. A desperate, terrible decision. If Germany is to survive, if anything is to be saved from the fire, Hitler must die. Not by enemy hands, by theirs. Understand this. They are not cowards. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg, aristocrat, war hero, wounded 3 times in North Africa, lost his left eye, his right hand, 2 fingers on his left, decorated with the Iron Cross. General Henning von Tresckow, veteran of France, Russia, brilliant tactician, loyal to Germany, not to madness. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the desert fox himself, Hitler's favorite, now quietly supporting the conspiracy from his estate at Herrlingen. These are not failures, not rabble. These are the men who won Poland, France, Yugoslavia, Greece, the men who drove to the gates of Moscow and the sands of El Alamein. And now they are preparing to kill their commander-in-chief. The plan is simple. Stauffenberg will carry a bomb into Hitler's daily briefing. He has access. He has clearance. No one searches a decorated colonel with one hand. He'll place the briefcase under the conference table, excuse himself, walk out, drive away. The blast will kill everyone in the room. Then, Operation Valkyrie. The reserve army mobilizes. Berlin is secured. The SS is arrested. A new government sues for peace with the West, keeps fighting the Soviets. Germany survives. That's the hope. That's the illusion they cling to as Stauffenberg boards the plane to Rostenburg on the morning of July 20th. But they don't understand something yet. The bomb is not the point. The explosion is not the point. What matters, what truly matters, is what happens after. Let's talk about what Hitler doesn't know on the morning of July 20th. Let's talk about the numbers that will soon become undeniable. The Eastern Front, Soviet forces, 6.4 million men. German forces, 2.3 million and falling. Red Army advance since June 22nd, 300 miles in 3 weeks. Army Group Center destroyed, 28 divisions gone. Casualties in Operation Bagration, 450,000 German soldiers. Dead, captured, or missing. Think about that. In 3 weeks, the Soviets erased an entire army group. The Western Front, Allied forces in Normandy, 1.5 million men by mid-July. Panzer divisions in reserve, 6. Panzer divisions that can actually move, 2. The rest have no fuel. Luftwaffe sorties over France per day, fewer than 300. Allied sorties, over 10,000. The skies belong to the enemy. Industrial capacity. Germany produces 1,500 tanks per month. The Soviets produce 2,000. The Americans produce 2,500. German oil production, 1.2 million tons per year. American oil production, 220 million tons. Do the math. You can't fight that. You can't win that. You can't even slow it down. Manpower. Wehrmacht strength, January 1944, 9.4 million. Wehrmacht strength, July 1944, 7.8 million. Replacements available? Fewer than 200,000 per month. Casualties per month, over 300,000. They are bleeding faster than they can replace. The cities. Hamburg, 40,000 dead in 1 week, July 1943. Berlin, bombed 363 times between 1940 and 1945. Cologne, 90% destroyed. Dresden will be next, then Munich, then everything. And here's what the generals know. What they've been trying to tell him for months. Germany has already lost, not might lose, not could lose, has lost. The only question left is how many will die before the end. But Hitler still believes in willpower, in destiny, in the Endsieg, the final victory that exists only in his mind. So they stop arguing. They stop presenting data. They stop trying to convince him. And they start planning his death. 1 p.m. Hitler stands outside the ruined conference room. His uniform is shredded, his hair is singed, blood runs from cuts on his face and hands. But he's alive. And in that moment, he believes it's a miracle. Providence has spared me, he says to the officers rushing toward him. Destiny has chosen me to complete my mission. He believes this, completely. For the next 3 hours, he will continue to believe it. But then, the reports start coming in. Berlin, the reserve army has mobilized. Government buildings surrounded. SS officers arrested. Communications cut. Radio stations seized. Major Otto Rehmer, commander of the Berlin Guard Battalion, calls the Wolf's Lair directly. Mein Führer, he says, they told us you were dead. Hitler's hand tightens on the phone. Who told you? General Ulbricht, Colonel von Stauffenberg. They said the SS attempted a coup. They ordered us to secure the city. Silence. Then Hitler speaks, and his voice is different now. Not triumphant, not certain. Cold. I am alive. Arrest them. All of them. He hangs up, and for the first time since the blast, he looks around the room. Really looks. At Field Marshal Keitel, chief of the Wehrmacht High Command, the man who has said yes to every order for 6 years, who stands there now, pale, waiting. At General Jodl, chief of operations, loyal, efficient, obedient. At the staff officers, the adjutants, the stenographers. And Hitler asks the question that will haunt him for the rest of his life. Who? Keitel hesitates. We don't know yet, mein Führer. The investigation is... Who? The room flinches. Keitel swallows. Colonel von Stauffenberg, General Ulbricht, General Beck. Possibly others. Others. Hitler repeats the word slowly. How many others? No one answers. Because they don't know. Because the conspiracy reaches deeper than anyone realized. Because hundreds of officers, maybe thousands, knew something, supported something, did nothing to stop it. And Hitler sees it now, in Keitel's eyes, in Jodl's posture, in the way the younger officers won't meet his gaze. Not fear, something worse. Relief. Relief that he might have died. They didn't plant the bomb. They didn't join the conspiracy. But they wished it had worked. He knows. They know he knows. And in that moment, in that terrible, crystallizing moment, Adolf Hitler understands that he is alone. The loyalty he demanded, the obedience he commanded, the faith he inspired, it's gone. What remains is duty, habit, fear of consequences, but not belief. They no longer believe he can win. They no longer believe he should win. They no longer believe in him. The bomb didn't kill him, but it killed something else, something he will never get back. Authority, not the kind that comes from rank or titles, the kind that comes from trust. And you can't rule an army without trust. You can only rule through terror. So that's what he'll do. Let's go back. Let's understand how it came to this. Because this didn't start on July 20th. This started years earlier, in 1,000 small moments where reality collided with ideology, and ideology won. December 1941. Moscow. The Wehrmacht stands 15 miles from the Kremlin. Temperature, -40 degrees. German soldiers freeze in summer uniforms because Hitler refused to plan for winter. General Guderian requests permission to withdraw, regroup, wait for spring. Hitler's response: stand and fight, no retreat. Result: 250,000 casualties in 3 months. Not from combat, from cold. The generals learn. Strategy doesn't matter. Reality doesn't matter. Only the Führer's will matters. January 1943, Stalingrad. The Sixth Army, 250,000 men, is surrounded. Field Marshal Paulus requests permission to break out while there's still time. Hitler orders, not one step back, fight to the last man. Paulus obeys. Result: 150,000 dead. 90,000 captured. The entire army annihilated. And when the generals suggest, carefully, respectfully, that this might have been avoided, Hitler explodes. The Sixth Army sacrificed itself for Germany. Their heroism will inspire millions. The generals say nothing, but they remember. July 1943, Kursk. The largest tank battle in history. Hitler's last chance to regain the initiative in the east. German intelligence knows the Soviets are prepared. The defensive lines are deeper than anything ever built. Minefields stretch for miles. Entire tank armies wait in reserve. The generals recommend canceling the offensive. Hitler insists. We need a victory. The troops need to see we can still win. The offensive launches. 9 days later, 200,000 German casualties, 500 tanks destroyed. The offensive collapses. The Eastern Front never stabilizes again. And the generals realize he's not fighting to win. He's fighting because he can't admit he's losing. This is the mechanism. This is why faith collapses. Not because of one big failure, because of 100 small ones. Because of the pattern: 1. Reality presents a problem. 2. The Führer rejects reality. 3. Soldiers die. 4. Repeat. After Stalingrad, they stop believing in victory. After Kursk, they stop believing in strategy. After Normandy, they stop believing in miracles. By July 1944, they've lost faith in everything except mathematics. And the mathematics are simple. The Allies have more men, more tanks, more planes, more factories, more oil, more everything. You can't beat mathematics with ideology. You can't beat industrial capacity with willpower. You can't beat reality by denying it. And that's what Hitler never understands. He thinks loyalty means believing in him. But loyalty isn't faith. Loyalty is following orders. And when the orders become suicidal, when following them means the destruction of everything you swore to protect, loyalty breaks. It must. Because there's something deeper than loyalty. Duty, not to a man, to a nation. And by July 1944, saving Germany means removing Hitler. So they try, and they fail, and everything gets worse. The executions begin at midnight. Bendler Block, Berlin. The courtyard where the conspiracy was planned. General Friedrich Ulbricht, Colonel Albrecht Merz von Kernheim, Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg. They stand against the wall. No trial, no appeal. A firing squad of 10 men. Stauffenberg goes last. His final words: "Long live sacred Germany." Then, darkness. But this is only the beginning. Hitler doesn't just want them dead, he wants them erased. Over the next 9 months, the purge consumes the Wehrmacht like cancer. 7,000 arrests. 5,000 executions. Generals hanged with piano wire from meat hooks, slowly. So they strangle instead of breaking their necks. Filmed. Every death filmed. So Hitler can watch. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, Germany's most beloved commander, is given a choice: public trial and family disgrace, or suicide and a hero's funeral. He takes a cyanide capsule on October 14th. The official story: heart attack. The truth: murder by the man who made him famous. General Henning von Treschow, already on the Eastern Front when the bomb fails, puts a grenade to his chest on July 21st. He leaves a note. The worth of a man is certain only if he is prepared to sacrifice his life for his convictions. Hitler doesn't care about convictions. He cares about control. And now he trusts no one. Watch what happens next. Every military briefing now includes SS guards, armed. Watching the generals, every phone call is monitored. Every letter is read. Officers are required to give the Nazi salute, the stiff-armed Hitler Gruß, instead of the traditional military salute. It's not respect. It's a loyalty test. And the strategic decisions, they get worse. Hitler moves his headquarters deeper underground, into the Führer bunker beneath Berlin. Concrete walls, reinforced steel, 30 feet below the Reich Chancellery. A tomb. He stops listening to intelligence reports. They're lying to demoralize me. He stops visiting the fronts. The troops don't need to see me. They need to obey. He stops accepting reality. When generals report that a division has been destroyed, he refuses to remove it from the maps. If I remove it, it means we've lost. So it stays. Phantom armies, paper divisions, orders to units that no longer exist. And the generals? They stop arguing. They stop presenting alternatives. They say, "Yes, mein Führer," and then do whatever they can to minimize the casualties. Because they know. The war is lost. Germany is dying. And the man in the bunker, the man who once inspired millions, is killing it faster than the Allies ever could. He doesn't rule an army anymore. He rules a prison. And he's the only inmate who doesn't know it. Let's step back. Let's see this clearly. July 20th, 1944 wasn't just an assassination attempt. It was a referendum, not on Hitler's policies, not on Nazi ideology, on reality itself. The conspirators looked at the data, the casualty reports, the production figures, the maps showing Soviet and American advances, and they made a choice: accept reality and act, or deny reality and die. They chose reality. Hitler chose denial. And here's the tragedy. He won. The bomb failed. The conspiracy collapsed. The plotters died. But Hitler's victory destroyed him. Power does not disappear at once. It erodes quietly. First, orders are followed, but belief weakens. Then, authority survives. But obedience becomes mechanical. And finally, loyalty remains only in appearance, long after conviction has vanished. Germany's high command reached this point long before July 1944. The uniforms were the same. The rituals were the same. The meetings continued. But the structure beneath, trust, confidence, respect, had already collapsed. A system built on absolute obedience could not survive once the belief holding it together dissolved. And when Hitler realized his generals no longer believed him, he was not discovering a betrayal. He was witnessing the inevitable physics of power. Authority without trust is a building without foundations. It may stand for a moment, but it cannot survive the first real shock. Because from that day forward, he surrounded himself only with people who would never tell him the truth, who would never challenge him, who would never say, "Mein Führer, this is impossible." He traded competence for compliance. He traded strategy for obedience. He traded Germany's future for his own certainty. And in the end, 9 months later, in that bunker beneath the burning city, he'll put a pistol to his head and pull the trigger. Not because the Allies defeated him, because he defeated himself. There's a lesson here. Not just about Hitler, not just about Nazi Germany, about power. Absolute power doesn't corrupt because it makes you evil. It corrupts because it makes you alone. When no one can challenge you, no one can correct you. When no one can question you, no one can warn you. When no one can stop you, no one can save you. From yourself. The generals who tried to kill Hitler weren't traitors. They were the last men willing to tell the truth. And when he silenced them, when he hanged them and shot them and drove them to suicide, he didn't eliminate treason. He eliminated truth. And an empire built on lies cannot stand, no matter how powerful, no matter how certain, no matter how convinced of its own destiny. July 20th, 1944. The day the bomb failed, the day Hitler survived, the day he realized his generals no longer believed in him. From that moment on, he didn't rule Germany. He haunted it. A ghost in a bunker, moving imaginary armies across maps while the real world burned. And in the end, the only person he destroyed completely was himself. From that day, he ruled no army, only fear. And fear, in the end, rules nothing at all.